He thought he was just fixing a flat tire on a rainy Tuesday. He didn't know he was restarting a war that ended 15 years ago. On a desolate stretch of Route 9, under a torrential downpour, a single act of kindness is about to shatter 2 lives. Caleb, a struggling mechanic fighting for custody of his daughter, pulls over to help a woman stranded in a luxury sedan. He sees a stranger. She sees the only man she ever loved and the man she swore to destroy. But the truth of why they parted is a lie that neither of them knows. Buckle up, because this isn't just a reunion. It's a reckoning. The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Caleb Miller wiped a smear of grease across his forehead, leaving a dark streak that matched the oil stains on his coveralls. His 2008 Ford F-150 rattled violently as it idled at the red light, the heater wheezing like a dying smoker. Beside him on the passenger seat sat a crumbled Happy Meal box, the bribe he'd used to stop his 6-year-old daughter Lily from crying when he dropped her off at his sister's house an hour ago. "Just one more job," Caleb muttered to the empty cab, his grip tightening on the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Just get through the week, pay the retainer for the lawyer, and keep Lily. The light turned green, but the car in front of him stalled. Caleb didn't honk. He didn't have the energy. He was 32, but tonight he felt 50. His auto repair shop, Miller's Mechanics, was 3 months behind on rent. His ex-wife Jessica was currently dating a corporate lawyer who drove a Porsche and liked to remind Caleb that love doesn't pay for ballet lessons. He merged onto the I-5 heading south toward the garage to finish an emergency transmission rebuild for a client who promised cash up front. The rain battered the windshield, turning the highway into a blurring kaleidoscope of red taillights and silver spray. That's when he saw it. About 2 miles past the Mercer Street exit, a sleek obsidian-black Mercedes-Maybach was pulled onto the shoulder hazard lights, pulsing rhythmically against the gloom. It was a vehicle worth more than Caleb's entire life earnings. A figure stood by the rear tire, struggling with an umbrella that had already been turned inside out by the wind. Caleb's instinct was to keep driving. He was tired. He was broke. He wasn't a charity service. But then he saw the figure stumble, nearly slipping into the muddy embankment. "Damn it," he sighed. He pulled the truck over the tires, crunching on the wet gravel. He grabbed his heavy flashlight and a lug wrench from the back, pulling his hood up against the freezing rain. As he approached the Mercedes, the driver straightened up. She was petite, drowning in a beige trench coat that looked like it cost $5,000. Her hair was plastered to her face, dark, wet strands obscuring her features. She was shivering violently. "Get back in the car!" Caleb shouted over the roar of passing semi-trucks. "I've got it!" The woman froze, squinting at him through the darkness and the blinding beam of his flashlight. She didn't move. "Mom? Get in the car. You're gonna freeze." She hesitated, then nodded stiffly, retreating into the dry leather sanctuary of the Maybach. Caleb dropped to his knees in the mud. The rear tire was shredded, looked like she'd hit a piece of rebar. He worked with the efficiency of a man who had done this 1,000 times. He jacked up the frame, spun the lug nuts, and swapped the flat for the spare in under 10 minutes. His hands were numb, his boots soaked through, but the rhythm of the work calmed him. It was simple. Broken things could be fixed, unlike people. When he finished, he tapped on the driver's side window. The glass slid down with a smooth electronic hum. A blast of warm, expensive air, scented with vanilla and sandalwood, hit his face. "You're all set," Caleb said, wiping rain from his eyes. Don't go over 50 on the spare, all right. Get it to a shop tomorrow. The woman inside turned to face him. The interior light was dim, casting shadows across her cheekbones. She had piercing green eyes, eyes that looked strangely familiar, though he couldn't place them. They were cold, calculating, and currently wide with shock. She stared at him for a long, uncomfortable silence. Her lips parted, trembling slightly. "How much?" she asked. Her voice was low, raspy. "Don't worry about it." Caleb waved a hand. "Just get home safe." "No," she insisted, her voice gaining a sharp, commanding edge. She fumbled with a designer purse on the passenger seat. "I pay for services rendered. What is your name?" "Caleb," he said, stepping back as a truck roared past, spraying them with mist. "Caleb Miller." The woman's hand froze inside her purse. She stopped moving entirely. She looked at him again, searching his face, the scar on his chin from a childhood bike accident, the way his jaw set when he was cold. "Caleb Miller," she repeated, almost a whisper. "Yeah. Look, lady, I gotta go. My truck's about to overheat." She didn't hand him cash. Instead, she pulled out a sleek matte black business card and pressed it into his grease-stained palm. Her fingers brushed his, and he felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with the static. Her skin was ice cold. "If you ever need compensation," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "Now call this number." "Right, thanks." Caleb shoved the card into his pocket without looking at it. He turned and ran back to his truck, desperate for the heater. Inside the Mercedes, Sophia Prescott, formerly. Sophia Hart watched the tail lights of the battered Ford F-150 fade into the rain. Her hands were shaking so hard she couldn't grip the steering wheel. She looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. The CEO of Prescott Global. The Iron Lady of Seattle Tech. The woman who had scrubbed her past so thoroughly that not even the internet could find dirt on her. "Caleb," she whispered the name, tasting like ash in her mouth. She reached for her phone and dialed a number. "Grant, it's Sophia," she said, her voice hardening into steel. "Cancel my morning meetings and get me a background check on a mechanic named Caleb Miller. I want to know everything. Debts, family, lawsuits, everything." She put the car in drive. "He doesn't get to play the hero," she said to the empty road. "Not after what he did to me." The next morning, the sun broke through the grey Seattle skyline, illuminating the towering glass spire of the Prescott Global building. On the 42nd floor, in a corner office that cost more per square foot than most houses, Sophia Prescott stood staring out at the city. She wasn't looking at the view. She was looking at a dossier spread open on her mahogany desk. Name, Caleb Joseph Miller. D.O.B., October 14th, 1992. Occupation owner, Miller's Mechanics. Financial status, critical. 3 loans in default. Lien on property imminent. Marital status, divorced. Dependents, 1 daughter, Lily Miller. Age 6. Sophia traced the name Lily with a manicured fingernail. "He has a daughter," she murmured. The door to her office swung open, and Grant Sterling walked in. Grant was everything Caleb wasn't: polished, wealthy, and safe. He was her VP of operations and theoretically her fiancé, though the ring on her finger felt more like a merger agreement than a promise. "You look like you saw a ghost," Grant said, placing a Starbucks cup on her desk. "Who is this grease monkey, and why are we running a deep dive on him?" "Did he steal your hubcaps?" Sophia snapped the folder shut. "He fixed my tire last night. And you tipped him right." "I'm going to do more than tip him," Sophia said, turning around. She wore a white power suit that was tailored to perfection. I'm going to buy his garage. Grant laughed, adjusting his silk tie. Why, we're in software, Sophia, not spark plugs. We don't need a chop shop in South Seattle. It's not about need, Sophia said coolly. It's about leverage. The land is zoned for commercial redevelopment. It's a good investment. It was a lie. It was a terrible investment. But Grant didn't know that Caleb Miller was the boy who had promised to marry Sophia under the bleachers of Northwood High 15 years ago. He didn't know that Caleb was the one who had supposedly written the letter. The cruel, devastating letter that told a pregnant 16-year-old Sophia that he wanted nothing to do with her or the mistake she was carrying. Sophia had lost that baby 2 weeks after reading the letter due to stress and complications. She had packed her bags, changed her last name to her mother's maiden name, Prescott, and moved to New York to become someone no one could ever hurt again. She had spent 15 years hating Caleb Miller. She had imagined him living a perfect life, laughing at her. But the man in the rain wasn't living a perfect life. He looked broken, and that confused her. Prepare the acquisition papers, Sophia ordered. I want to deliver them personally. Meanwhile, in South Seattle, Caleb was under the hood of a 1998 Honda Civic wrestling with a rusted alternator. Daddy. Caleb shimmied out from under the car. Lily was sitting on a stack of tires in the corner of the shop, swinging her legs. She was wearing her favorite pink tutu over her jeans. Yeah, Bug. Caleb wiped his hands on a rag. Mom called. She said she's coming to pick me up early. She said you can't afford dinner tonight. The words hit Caleb like a physical blow. He walked over and scooped Lily up, spinning her around until she giggled. Mom just worries too much. We're having a feast tonight. Macaroni and cheese with extra hot dogs. The gourmet stuff. Lily laughed, but her eyes were sad. She was too smart for 6. She knew things were tight. The bell above the garage door chimed. Be right back, sweetie, Caleb said, setting her down. Stay away from the hydraulic lift. Caleb walked into the small, dusty front office. He expected a customer complaining about a bill or maybe the landlord looking for the rent check he didn't have. Instead, the air in the room seemed to vanish. Standing in the center of his grime-streaked waiting room was the woman from last night. In the harsh fluorescent light of the shop, she looked even more out of place. Her white suit was spotless. Her heels clicked sharply on the linoleum. But it wasn't just her clothes. It was her face. Now that she wasn't drenched in rain, Caleb could see her clearly. The arch of her brow, the slight dimple in her chin. His heart hammered against his ribs. It couldn't be. Sophia, he breathed. It had been 15 years. She looked different, harder, sharper, richer. But it was her. Sophia Hart. The girl he had planned to run away with after graduation. The girl who had vanished one night without a word, leaving only an empty locker and a broken heart. Sophia didn't smile. She stared at him with an expression that was equal parts pity and disdain. Hello, Caleb, she said. Her voice wasn't the warm melody he remembered. It was cold corporate glass. I didn't know it was you last night, Caleb stammered, stepping forward, his impulse to hug her, warring with the icy barrier she was projecting. My God, Soph, where have you been? I looked for you. I called your aunt. I called everyone. Save it. Sophia cut him off. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick document bound in blue plastic. She tossed it onto the oil-stained counter between them. What is this? Caleb asked, looking from the folder to her eyes. This is an offer, Sophia said. I'm buying the property. Prescott Global is looking to expand its logistics footprint. We're offering you 20% above market value for the land and the building. Caleb blinked his brain, unable to process the shift. What do you want to buy my shop? It pays off your debts, Caleb, she said, her voice dropping lower. I know about the loans. I know about the custody battle. I know you're drowning. This money secures your daughter's future. All you have to do is sign, take the check, and leave town. Caleb felt the blood drain from his face. The joy of seeing her was instantly replaced by a sickening realization. She wasn't here for a reunion. She was here to evict him. You ran a background check on me, Caleb asked quietly. I do due diligence on all my investments. I'm not an investment, Sophia. It's me. It's Caleb. I know who you are. She snapped, her composure cracking for just a second, revealing a flash of white-hot anger beneath. That's why I'm making this generous, considerate payment for the tire, and for old times. Caleb looked at the contract, then back at her. He saw the anger in her eyes, but he didn't understand it. Why did she hate him? She was the one who left. I'm not selling, Caleb said, pushing the folder back toward her. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Don't be stupid. You have no leverage. The bank will foreclose in 3 weeks. If I don't buy it, they will take it, and you'll get nothing. You'll lose the shop, and then you'll lose your daughter. Caleb slammed his hand on the counter. Don't you talk about my daughter. The noise made Sophia flinch. In the silence that followed, the door to the garage creaked open. Daddy. Lily peeked out, holding her stuffed rabbit. Is everything okay? Sophia froze. She turned slowly to look at the little girl. Lily had Caleb's messy hair, but she had... Sophia's breath hitched. Lily had green eyes. Her green eyes. Caleb stepped between Sophia and Lily, protective instinct flaring. Go back inside, Lily. Daddy is just talking business. Lily retreated, closing the door. Sophia turned back to Caleb, her face pale. She looked as if she had been punched in the gut. Is she? Sophia started, her voice trembling. Who is her mother? Jessica, Caleb said, confused by her reaction. My ex-wife. Why? Sophia let out a shaky breath, regaining her mask of indifference. No reason. Just curious. She picked up the contract. Think about the offer, Caleb. You have 24 hours. After that, the price goes down. She turned and walked out of the shop, not looking back. Caleb watched her go, his mind reeling. He looked down at the counter where her hand had rested. She had left something behind. It was a small silver charm bracelet. Caleb picked it up. His heart stopped. It was a cheap, tarnished silver heart he had won for her at a carnival when they were 16. She had kept it for 15 years, while becoming a millionaire CEO. She had kept a $5 trinket from a mechanic. He ran to the door, but the black Mercedes was already peeling out of the lot, disappearing into the traffic of South Seattle. Caleb clutched the bracelet. Something was wrong. She hated him, yet she kept his bracelet. She wanted to buy him out, yet she looked at Lily like she was seeing a ghost. Oh, there were pieces of the puzzle missing. And Caleb Miller never left a puzzle unsolved. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor of the Prescott Global building took exactly 45 seconds. For Caleb Miller, it felt like a lifetime. He was wearing his Sunday best, a button-down shirt that was slightly too tight across the shoulders, and dark jeans that were clean but faded. He clutched the silver charm bracelet in his pocket, so tightly the metal edges dug into his skin. He had to talk his way past security, then the receptionist, and finally Sophia's executive assistant, a terrifying woman named Ms. Halloway. He refused to leave. He told them he had personal property of Ms. Prescott's that he needed to return. When the double doors finally opened, Sophia was standing behind her desk, flanked by Grant Sterling. "I told security to let him up," Sophia said to Grant, her eyes fixed on Caleb. "Leave us." Grant frowned, looking Caleb up and down with a sneer of distaste. "Sophia, we have the board meeting in 20 minutes. You don't have time." Charity cases. It's not charity, Grant. It's closure. Get out. Grant straightened his tie, shot a warning glare at Caleb, and exited, closing the heavy oak doors with a soft click. The silence that followed was suffocating. "You have 5 minutes," Sophia said, checking her diamond-encrusted watch. "If you're here to beg for more money for the shop, the offer stands at market value plus 20%. Take it or leave it." Caleb walked across the plush carpet, ignoring the view of the city that made him feel small. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the tarnished silver bracelet. He dropped it onto the pristine glass surface of her desk. It made a tiny, pathetic clink sound. Sophia stared at it. Her mask of indifference slipped for a fraction of a second. "You dropped this," Caleb said, his voice rough. "Yesterday, at the shop." Sophia didn't touch it. So. Caleb leaned forward, placing his hands on the desk. "You told me you hated me. You treated me like I was dirt on your shoe. But you kept this. For 15 years, Sophia. You kept a $5 piece of junk I won for you at the county fair. Why?" Sophia looked up, her green eyes blazing with sudden fury. She stood up, matching his intensity. "Because it was a reminder," she hissed. "A reminder never to trust a smooth-talking boy with a wrench and a smile. A reminder of how stupid I was." "Stupid." Caleb shook his head. "We were in love, Soph. We were going to go to California. We had a plan, and then you just vanished. You ghosted me. I went to your house every day for a month. Your dad threatened to call the cops, and now you show up 15 years later trying to bulldoze my life, acting like I'm the villain." "You are the villain," Sophia shouted, her composure shattering completely. She ripped open the top drawer of her desk and pulled out a yellowed, creased piece of notebook paper. It was preserved inside a plastic sleeve like a piece of criminal evidence. She threw it at him. "You want to know why I left? Caleb, read it. Read your own words." Caleb picked up the plastic sleeve. His hands shook as he looked at the paper. It was a handwritten letter, dated June 14th, 15 years ago. "Sophia, I can't do this. The baby, the running away. It's too much. I have a life here. I'm not throwing it away for a mistake we made in the back seat of a car. Get rid of it. Don't contact me again. I never really loved you anyway. It was just fun. Caleb." Caleb read the words 3 times. The blood drained from his face, leaving him dizzy. He felt like he was going to be sick. "I didn't write this," he whispered. Sophia let out a cruel, bitter laugh. "Don't lie. It was in your locker. You slipped it into my chemistry textbook." "Sophia, look at it." Caleb held the paper up, his voice rising to a desperate shout. "Look at the handwriting. I have looked at it for 15 years. No, look at the Y's, look at the G's. I loop my tails. I've always looped my tails. This writing, it's jagged. It's straight." Caleb stared at the slant of the letters, a memory triggering deep in his brain. He knew this handwriting. He had seen it on grocery lists, on divorce papers, on custody agreements. "This isn't my handwriting," Caleb said, his voice trembling with rage. "It's Jessica's." Sophia froze. The room went deadly silent. "What?" she breathed. "Jessica Tate, my ex-wife, the mother of my daughter." Caleb looked up at Sophia, his eyes burning with tears. "She was your lab partner in chemistry, wasn't she? She sat next to you." Sophia's mind raced back. Jessica Tate, the quiet girl with the frizzy hair who always asked to borrow Sophia's notes. The girl who had a massive, not-so-secret crush on Caleb since middle school. "She offered to pass the note to you," Sophia murmured, the memory surfacing through the fog of trauma. "I was crying in the bathroom because I was scared to tell you about the pregnancy. Jessica took my textbook. She said she'd put it in your locker." "She never put a note in my locker," Caleb said. "And I never wrote this. She forged it. She wanted you gone." Caleb slammed the plastic sleeve back onto the desk. "She won, Sophia. She got me. She caught me on the rebound a year after you left when I was broken and drunk and missed you so much I couldn't breathe. She got pregnant with Lily, and I tried to do the right thing. I married her, and she made my life a living hell for 6 years until she found a rich lawyer and bailed." Sophia stared at the letter. The edges of her vision blurred. For 15 years she had built an empire on the foundation of her hatred for Caleb Miller. She had become cold, ruthless, and successful because she believed the only man she ever loved had thrown her away like trash. If that was a lie, then who was she and the baby? Caleb asked, his voice barely audible. "The letter says, 'Get rid of it.' Were you—" Sophia turned away, facing the window. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking very small in the massive office. "I didn't get rid of it," she whispered. "I wanted him. I wanted a piece of you. But the stress, the grief, reading that letter broke me, Caleb. My body couldn't handle it. I miscarried 2 weeks later." Caleb made a sound like a wounded animal. He crossed the room in 2 strides. He didn't ask for permission. He grabbed her by the shoulders and spun her around, pulling her into his chest. Sophia stiffened for a moment, her corporate armor trying to hold, but then she crumbled. She buried her face in his cheap flannel shirt and sobbed. It was a guttural, ugly cry, the sound of 15 years of grief finally being released. Caleb held her, resting his chin on her head, tears streaming down his own face into her hair. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know. I never knew." They stood there for a long time, the city of Seattle carrying on below them, oblivious to the tragedy in the tower. Finally, Sophia pulled back. Her mascara was ruined, her eyes red. She looked at Caleb, really looked at him, seeing the lines of worry on his face, the grey hairs in his beard. "Jessica," she said, the name coming out as a curse. "She did this." "Yeah," Caleb said, wiping his eyes. "She did." "Where is she now?" "She lives in Bellevue. She's with some hotshot lawyer. She barely sees Lily." Sophia walked back to her desk and hit the intercom button. "Grant?" "Yes, Sophia," came the crisp reply. "Cancel the board meeting." "Sophia, you can't. Cancel it, and get me the legal team on the line. I want everything we have on a woman named Jessica Tate Miller." She released the button and looked at Caleb. The sadness in her eyes was being replaced by a cold, calculated determination. The Iron Lady was back, but this time her target had changed. "Go back to your shop, Caleb," she said softly. "Don't sign anything. Don't let anyone in. What are you going to do?" Sophia picked up the forged letter and the silver bracelet. She clasped the bracelet around her wrist. "I'm going to fix this," she said. "I'm going to destroy the person who stole our life." Caleb drove back to the garage in a daze. The rain had started again, drumming a melancholic rhythm on the roof of his truck. He felt lighter, yet terrified. The truth was out. Sophia didn't hate him. But the cost of that truth was a dead child and 15 wasted years. When he pulled into the lot of Miller's Mechanics, the lightness vanished. The bay door was wide open. "Lily!" Caleb screamed, throwing the truck into park and leaping out before the engine died. "Lily!" He realized with a jolt of panic that Lily was at school. He was safe. But his shop wasn't. Inside, the place had been tossed. Shelves were tipped over. Oil drums were overturned, slick black pools spreading across the concrete. His tool chests, worth thousands of dollars, were smashed open, the tools missing. But the worst part was the car on the lift. It was Mrs. Higgins's vintage Cadillac, a car he had been restoring for months. It had been keyed deeply along every panel, the leather seats slashed to ribbons. No, no, no. Caleb fell to his knees in the oil, his hands gripping his hair. This wasn't a robbery. This was a message. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with trembling, oily hands. It was a text from an unknown number. The offer price just dropped 50%. Sell or the next accident happens at the elementary school. Caleb stared at the screen, his blood turning to ice. They were threatening Lily. He didn't call the police. He didn't think. He dialed the number on the sleek black business card Sophia had given him. "Caleb." Sophia answered on the first ring. "I found Jessica. They hit the shop." Caleb interrupted, his voice shaking with a dangerous calm. "They wrecked everything, and they just threatened Lily." "What? Who?" "I don't know, but they said the offer price dropped." "Sophia, is this you? Is this your company?" "No." Sophia's voice was sharp. "Caleb, I swear to you, I put a hold on the acquisition order an hour ago." "Then who is doing this?" "Stay there," Sophia ordered. "I'm coming to you. Do not leave the shop." 30 minutes later, the black Maybach screeched into the lot, followed closely by 2 black SUVs. Sophia stepped out, followed by 4 large men in suits who looked like they ate concrete for breakfast. She ignored the oil on the floor, her heels clicking as she surveyed the destruction. Her face was pale. "Grant," she whispered. "What?" Caleb asked, stepping forward. He was holding a tire iron, his knuckles white. "Grant Sterling," Sophia said, looking at Caleb. "My fiancé. He handles the aggressive acquisitions. When I told him to cancel the meeting, he must have seen the hold order. He knows I'm wavering." "He threatened my daughter," Caleb snarled. "I'm going to kill him." "No." Sophia put a hand on his chest. The contact sent a shiver through both of them. "If you go after him, you go to jail, and Lily goes to Jessica. That's exactly what he wants. He wants you desperate. So what do I do?" "I'm ruined, Sophia. Look at this place. I can't work. I can't pay the mortgage. The bank will take it by Friday." Sophia looked around the shop. It was a disaster. But she saw something else. She saw the pride Caleb took in his work. She saw the drawings Lily had taped to the wall of the office. She saw the home he had built. "Grant thinks money is the only power in the world," Sophia said, her eyes narrowing. "He thinks he can bully you because you're small." She turned to the security team. "Take pictures. Everything. I want a forensic documentation of this damage." She turned back to Caleb. Grant made a mistake. He used company resources to hire thugs. That's illegal. It's corporate espionage and racketeering. If we can prove he ordered this, he's finished. How do we prove it? We don't, Sophia said. Jessica does. Caleb blinked. Jessica. Why would she help us? Because Sophia pulled out her phone, showing a dossier she had received on the drive over. Grant Sterling has been paying Jessica Tate $5,000 a month for the last 6 months. Caleb's jaw dropped. What? Why? I don't know yet, but my guess Grant knew about our past. He did a background check on me a long time ago. He found Jessica. He's been using her to keep tabs on you to make sure you never came back into my life. He knew if we reunited I might get distracted from the business. Or worse, he knew I still loved you. The admission hung in the air. I still loved you. Caleb looked at her, the tire iron lowering in his hand. We have work to do, Caleb, Sophia said, stepping back, her cheeks flushing slightly. Clean yourself up. We're going to pay your ex-wife a visit. And this time I'm not the crying 16-year-old girl she remembers. The drive to Bellevue was silent. Caleb sat in the passenger seat of the Maybach, watching the rain streak the windows. He felt like he was in a dream. Yesterday he was a mechanic worrying about a flat tire. Today he was sitting next to the CEO of a multinational corporation, plotting to take down a corrupt executive and his own ex-wife. They pulled up to a manicured suburban house. It was beige, boring, and expensive. Jessica's car, a white Range Rover, was in the driveway. "Let me do the talking," Sophia said as they walked to the door. Caleb rang the bell. Jessica opened the door. She looked good, better than when she left him. Her hair was straightened. Her clothes were expensive yoga gear. She held a glass of white wine. "Caleb." She frowned, blocking the doorway. "It's not your weekend. What are you doing here if you're here to beg for a reduction in alimony? Save it. Todd is home, and he—" Then she saw Sophia. Jessica's face went slack. The wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the porch, shards of glass and Chardonnay exploding everywhere. "Hello, Jessica," Sophia said smoothly, stepping over the broken glass. "It's been a long time. Chemistry class, right?" "Sophia," Jessica stammered, backing up into the foyer. I didn't know you were in town." "I own the town, Jessica," Sophia said, walking into the house uninvited. Caleb followed, closing the door behind them. "What do you want?" Jessica asked, her eyes darting between Caleb and Sophia. She looked terrified. "I want the truth," Sophia said. She reached into her purse and pulled out the letter. "Did you write this?" Jessica stared at the letter. She tried to laugh, but it came out as a squeak. "What? No. That's crazy. Caleb wrote that." "We know about Grant Sterling." Caleb said, his voice low. "We know he's paying you." Jessica's face went white. "I don't know who that is." "Don't lie," Sophia snapped. "I have the bank records, Jessica. I have the transfers. Grant is paying you to keep Caleb down, to keep him miserable so he never looks up and sees me. Did Grant tell you to send the text threatening Lily?" "No," Jessica shrieked. "I would never hurt Lily. She's my daughter." "Is she?" Sophia asked coldly. The question hung in the air, weird and heavy. "Of course she is," Jessica yelled. "You're crazy. Get out of my house." "Grant sent thugs to Caleb's shop today," Sophia said, stepping closer to Jessica. "They destroyed it. They threatened to hurt Lily at school. That's the man you're working for. If anything happens to Lily, it's on you." Jessica trembled. She looked at Caleb. She saw the fear and the anger in his eyes. She might have been a terrible wife and a selfish mother, but she wasn't a monster. She didn't want Lily hurt. He said he just wanted to buy the land, Jessica whispered, collapsing onto the stairs. Grant. He contacted me a year ago. He said he knew Caleb was your weakness. He paid me to make sure Caleb's financial life stayed messy, to make sure he was too busy drowning to ever look for you. I needed the money. Todd's firm is struggling. And the letter, Caleb asked, 15 years ago. Jessica put her head in her hands. I loved you, Caleb. You never saw me. It was always Sophia, Sophia, Sophia. When she got pregnant, I knew you'd leave with her. I couldn't let that happen. So, I wrote the note. I knew if you thought she aborted the baby, you'd hate her. Caleb felt a surge of nausea. He looked at the woman he had shared a bed with, the woman he had raised a child with. It was all poison. You stole 15 years, Caleb said, his voice breaking. You stole my child. I gave you a child, Jessica screamed, pointing upstairs. Lily is yours. Isn't that enough? No, Sophia said. It's not. Sophia pulled out her phone and started recording. Jessica, you are going to tell me exactly what Grant Sterling asked you to do. You are going to testify. And if you do, I won't sue you for fraud, forgery, and emotional distress. I won't take this house. And I won't tell your husband Todd that his lifestyle is funded by your ex-boyfriend's stalker. Jessica looked at the phone, then at Sophia's icy green eyes. She nodded slowly. Okay, Jessica whispered. I'll talk. As Sophia recorded the confession, Caleb walked to the living room window. He saw a black sedan parked down the street. It wasn't one of Sophia's. Sophia, Caleb said urgently. Sophia looked up. We have company. The front door kicked open with a deafening crash. Grant Sterling stood in the doorway, but he wasn't wearing his suit jacket. He was wearing a raincoat, and in his hand he held a heavy, silenced pistol. You ladies really should have learned to knock, Grant said, stepping inside and locking the ruined door behind him. Now things have to get messy. The silence in the suburban hallway was deafening, broken only by the steady drum of rain against the open front door. Grant Sterling stood casually, the silencer on his pistol, looking terrifyingly long in the dim light. He wasn't pointing it at Caleb or Sophia yet. He was pointing it at the floor, a relaxed posture that made him infinitely more dangerous. Close the door, Caleb. Grant said, his voice conversational. You're letting the heat out. Caleb didn't move. His body was coiled tight, every muscle screaming at him to lunge, but the distance was too great. 10 feet. A bullet travels faster than a man. Do it, Sophia said, her voice trembling but authoritative. Do what he says, Caleb. Caleb slowly reached back and pushed the door shut. The latch clicked like a gunshot. Good. Grant smiled. It was the smile of a man who had already won. Now everyone into the living room. Jessica, stop crying. It's pathetic. They shuffled into the living room. Jessica collapsed onto her beige sofa, sobbing into her hands. Sophia stood by the fireplace, her posture rigid, her eyes locked on Grant. Caleb positioned himself between the women and the gun. Grant, this is insanity, Sophia said, keeping her tone level. Kidnapping attempted murder. You're a businessman, not a cartel hitman. There's no way you walk away from this. My security team is tracking the car. Your security team is currently dealing with a cyber attack on the grid that I initiated 10 minutes ago. Grant chuckled, checking his watch. GPS is down. Comms are jammed. And as for walking away, I'm not going to run Sophia. I'm going to be the grieving hero. He gestured with the gun. Here's the narrative, the estranged, desperate ex-husband that's you. Caleb broke into his ex-wife's home. He was violent, demanding money. The CEO of Prescott Global, that's you. Sophia tried to intervene. Tragically, in the struggle, Caleb shot both women and then turned the gun on himself. I arrived just too late to save them. Caleb's blood ran cold. You're sick. I'm efficient, Grant corrected. With you gone, the acquisition of the garage goes through. With Sophia gone, the board appoints me interim CEO. And Jessica. Well, Jessica is a loose end who knows too much. Jessica looked up, her mascara running down her cheeks. Grant, you promised. You said if I helped you ruin Caleb, you'd pay off Todd's gambling debts. You said nobody would get hurt. I lied, darling, Grant sneered. Just like you lied to Caleb for 15 years. We're two of a kind, aren't we? Why? Caleb stepped forward, his hands raised. Why do you hate me? I'm a mechanic. I'm nobody. That's exactly why. Grant's composure cracked, his face twisting into a scowl. I have 2 MBAs. I built Prescott Global alongside Sophia for a decade. I gave her everything. And yet she never looked at me the way she looks at you. She kept that pathetic bracelet in her desk like a holy relic. I'm not losing my company to a ghost from high school. Grant raised the gun, aiming directly at Caleb's chest. Time to say goodbye, grease monkey. No, Sophia screamed. What happened next took 3 seconds, but to Caleb it felt like an hour. Sophia grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the mantel and hurled it at Grant. It was a desperate throw wide of the mark, but it shattered against the wall next to Grant's head, spraying him with glass. Grant flinched, the gun wavering. Caleb launched himself. He didn't think about the bullet. He didn't think about Lily. He just saw the black metal barrel and knew he had to cover the distance. Bang! The sound was a muffled thwip from the silencer, but the impact was sickening. Jessica screamed. Caleb hit Grant like a freight train. They crashed into the coffee table, splintering wood and glass. The gun skittered across the floor. Caleb drove his fist into Grant's face once, twice, feeling cartilage crunch under his knuckles. All the rage of the last 3 months, the foreclosure, the hunger, the fear for Lily poured into his fists. Grant, however, was bigger and desperate. He bucked his hips, throwing Caleb off, and scrambled toward the gun. Get the gun! Caleb roared, his mouth full of blood. Sophia dove for the weapon. Grant kicked out, catching her in the ribs. She gasped, collapsing in pain. Grant's fingers brushed the grip of the pistol. Suddenly, a white flash moved across the room. Jessica. She didn't go for the gun. She picked up a shard of the broken vase, a jagged dagger of glass, and plunged it into Grant's shoulder with a primal shriek. Grant howled, dropping the gun. He backhanded Jessica, sending her flying into the wall where she crumpled and didn't move. Caleb scrambled over, grabbed the pistol and leveled it at Grant's face. Don't move, Caleb screamed, his chest heaving. I swear to God, don't move. Grant lay on his back, clutching his bleeding shoulder, panting. He looked up at Caleb and started to laugh. It was a wet, gurgling sound. Go ahead, Grant wheezed. Kill me. It doesn't change the math, Caleb. Shut up. Caleb checked on Sophia. She was clutching her side, but nodding that she was okay. He looked at Jessica. She was pale. Too pale. There was a dark red stain spreading across her white yoga top. The bullet hadn't hit Caleb. It had hit Jessica when she stood up to scream. Jessica! Caleb dropped to his knees beside her, keeping the gun trained on Grant. Sophia, call 911. Now. The signal is jammed, Sophia cried, fumbling with her phone. Use the landline in the kitchen. Caleb pressed his hands against Jessica's stomach. The blood was warm and coming fast. Stay with me, Jess. Stay with me. Jessica's eyes fluttered open. She looked at Caleb, her gaze unfocused. Caleb, she whispered, I'm here. Help is coming. I have to. Tell you. She coughed, a speck of blood appearing on her lips. Before he wins. Grant, still on the floor, laughed again. Tell him, Jessica. Tell him the punchline. Shut up, Sophia yelled, running back into the room. Police are on the way. Jessica gripped Caleb's greasy shirt, pulling him closer. Her strength was fading rapidly. Lily, Jessica gasped. Lily isn't safe with him. I know, Caleb said, tears mixing with the sweat on his face. I won't let him near her. No. Jessica shook her head weakly. You don't understand. The custody battle, you can't win it. Why not? Jessica closed her eyes, a tear tracking through the blood on her cheek. Because you aren't her father. The world stopped. The rain, the sirens in the distance, the pain in his hands, it all vanished. What? Caleb whispered. I cheated, Jessica breathed. 6 years ago, we were fighting. You were always working. I wanted to hurt you. I met someone at a bar. I didn't know who he was then. I just knew he had money. She pointed a trembling finger at Grant Sterling. Caleb looked at Grant. The man on the floor smirked, his teeth stained with blood. Surprise, Grant rasped. I didn't just find Jessica 6 months ago, Caleb. I found her 6 years ago. I didn't know she was your wife until later. Small world, isn't it? Lily has my eyes. Didn't you ever wonder why she doesn't look like you? Caleb felt like he was falling. Lily, his bug. The girl he taught to ride a bike. The girl he starved himself to feed. No, Caleb choked out. That's a lie. I did a DNA test, Grant said. Why do you think I was so confident I'd get custody after I ruined you? I have biology on my side. You're just the babysitter. Caleb stared at Jessica. Tell me he's lying. Jessica looked at him with devastating sorrow. I'm sorry, Caleb. I'm so sorry. I wanted to keep her. I wanted to keep you. Her hand went limp in his grasp. Her eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. Jessica. Caleb shook her. Jessica. The front door burst open. Police, drop the weapon. Caleb didn't hear them. He didn't feel them tackle him, pinning his face to the floor. He just lay there, staring at the dead woman who had ruined his past, and the laughing man who had just destroyed his future. The interrogation room at the Seattle Police Department was cold. Caleb sat hunched at the metal table, his hands scrubbed clean of blood but shaking with adrenaline. He had been there for hours when the door finally buzzed open. It was Sophia. She looked exhausted, carrying a file folder instead of her usual designer purse. I got you released, she said, sitting opposite him. Self-defense. The forensic evidence matches Jessica's dying statement. Caleb didn't look up. Is she? She's gone, Caleb. Grant is in surgery. He'll survive, which means he'll live long enough to die in prison. Fraud, attempted murder, racketeering, he's buried. It doesn't matter, Caleb whispered, his voice hollow. He won. You heard him. He's Lily's father. Even from a cell he can block me. He can take her away, just to spite me. Sophia reached across the table, her hand covering his. Grant thinks he won because he's a narcissist. He believed Jessica's fear and his own ego. He never ran a test, Caleb. He just assumed his genetics were superior. What are you saying? I demanded an emergency paternity test for the case file. Sophia slid a single sheet of paper across the table. The police took a sample from Grant at the hospital and one from Lily. Caleb held his breath, staring at the paper. Subject, Lily Miller. Putative father, Grant Sterling. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. Putative father, Caleb Miller. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The room spun. But Jessica was wrong, Sophia said firmly. She cheated, yes, but she was sleeping with you too. She lived with the guilt of a secret that wasn't even true. Grant isn't the father, Caleb. You are. Biologically, legally, completely. Caleb stared at the numbers until they blurred. He put his head in his hands and wept, not for the trauma, but for the relief. Lily was his nose, his chin, his blood. No one could take her. Sophia moved her chair and wrapped her arms around him, holding him tight as the nightmare finally broke. The rain drizzled over the cemetery as the small funeral service ended. Caleb stood apart from Jessica's parents, holding Lily's hand tightly. "Daddy, can we go?" Lily asked, scuffing her black dress shoes in the gravel. "I want to go home." "Yeah, Bug. Let's go." As they walked toward the parking lot, the black Mercedes Maybach was waiting. Sophia leaned against the hood, wearing dark glasses and a simple black dress. She walked over, kneeling down to look Lily in the eye. "Hi, Lily." She smiled gently. "I'm Sophia. I'm an old friend of your daddy's." Lily hid behind Caleb's leg shyly. Sophia stood up and handed Caleb a thick envelope. He opened it to find the deed to his garage stamped "Paid in Full" and a check for $500,000. "Sophia, I can't," Caleb started. "It's a settlement, not a gift," she cut him off. "Prescott Global is liable for Grant's actions. Take it. Fix the shop. Secure Lily's future." Caleb looked at the check, then at the woman who had returned from his past to save his future. "Why are you doing all this?" Sophia touched the cheap silver charm bracelet on her wrist. "Because I fixed my tire, but I realized I still have a lot of things left to repair, and I hear you're the best mechanic in town." Caleb managed a weak smile. "I'm expensive." "I can afford you," she said, opening her car door. "I'm moving the headquarters to Seattle, Caleb. The view is better here." She got in and drove away, leaving Caleb standing in the rain. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel cold. He picked up his daughter, held the deed to his life, and watched the love of his life drive away, knowing this time she wouldn't be gone for long. "Come on, Bug." He kissed Lily's head. "Let's go home." 1 year later, the rain in Seattle didn't feel cold anymore. It felt like growth. Miller's Custom Restorations was no longer a grime-covered hole in the wall. The building had been repainted a slate gray with cedar accents. The lot was full of high-end vintage cars waiting for Caleb's touch. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was an artist, and thanks to a certain CEO's connections, he was the most sought-after restorer on the West Coast. Caleb wiped his hands on a clean rag, admiring the 1967 Mustang he had just finished polishing. The bell above the door chimed. He didn't look up. "We're closed for the weekend, folks. Come back Monday. Even for your investors." Caleb turned, a smile instantly breaking across his face. Sophia stood in the doorway. She wasn't wearing a power suit today. She wore jeans, a cashmere sweater, and sneakers. She looked younger, softer, and infinitely happier. "For the majority shareholder," Caleb said, walking over to her, "I think we can make an exception." Sophia walked into the shop, leading Lily by the hand. Lily, now 7 and missing a front tooth, was holding a giant ice cream cone. "Daddy, look," Lily squealed. "Sophia took me to the pier. We saw a seal. Did you now?" Caleb scooped Lily up, minding the ice cream. "And did you save any for me?" "Nope," Lily giggled. "Sophia said you have to buy your own." "She's tough," Caleb said, winking at Sophia. "I'm teaching her the value of assets," Sophia teased. "Go wash up Bug. I ordered pizza. It's in the car." Lily scrambled off towards the office. Caleb and Sophia stood alone in the quiet garage, surrounded by gleaming chrome and the scent of oil and rain. It was a comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between two people who have seen the worst of each other and stayed. "Grant's appeal was denied today," Sophia said softly. 50 years, no parole." Caleb nodded, the shadow of the past finally lifting completely. "And Jessica's parents? They stopped calling. They know they have no legal standing. Lily is yours, Caleb. Completely." Caleb reached out and took Sophia's hand. Her wrist still bore the cheap silver charm bracelet. It was scratched and tarnished, clashing horribly with her Cartier watch, but she never took it off. "You know," Caleb said, running his thumb over the silver heart, "I can afford to buy you a real one now. Diamonds, gold, whatever you want." Sophia looked down at the bracelet, then up at him, her green eyes shining. "I don't want a new one. This one has history. It's broken in places, it's a little rough around the edges, and it doesn't make sense to anyone but us." She stepped closer, closing the gap between them. "It's just like us," she whispered. Caleb wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her flush against him. "So are we fixed yet?" Sophia smiled, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I think the diagnostics are looking good, but I might need a lifetime warranty just to be sure." "Sold," Caleb murmured. He kissed her then. It wasn't the desperate, hungry kiss of teenagers in a high school parking lot. It was the deep, steady kiss of adults who had walked through fire to find each other again. It tasted of rain, second chances, and a future that was finally perfectly unbroken. From the office, Lily giggled, watching them through the glass. Her family wasn't traditional. It was messy and complicated and welded together from broken parts. But as Caleb always said, those are the ones that run the longest. And that My Friends is the story of Caleb and Sophia. It proves that sometimes the things we think are broken beyond repair, whether it's an old car, a trust, or a heart, are actually just waiting for the right person to fix them. Caleb thought he was saving Sophia from the rain, but in the end, they saved each other from a life of what-ifs. What did you think of Jessica's secret? Did you suspect Grant was the villain, or were you surprised by the twist about Lily's paternity? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe in second chances like this? If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. We upload new emotional roller coasters every week. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.